What's happening, everyone? James Lynch here. In today's video, I'm going to be predicting every single UFC champion by the end of 2026. This is the start of my 2026 look ahead series. And if you remember, I've done this video every year at the start of the year. This is my one from 2025. Let's look and see how I did on the video back then. That was recorded back on January 1st, 2025. And then we'll get ahead to my picks for this year. So at Flyweight, I had Brandon Royval. That obviously didn't work out. Royval lost to Joshua Van, and he lost to Manel Kopp, Joshua Van being the Flyweight champion. Bantamweight, Umar Nurmagomedov had a very close fight with Merab Dvalishvili. He almost edged it out, but Merab ends up getting the win, and obviously Petr Yan is the Bantamweight champion with him defeating Merab at the end of the year. Movsar Evloev didn't even get to fight in 2025. Didn't know that would happen. I put in brackets here if Topuria moves up. Topuria did get to move up, so I was right about that, but the Evloev champion, they didn't even get a shot. The featherweight title was only defended once last year, and it was the Alex Volkanovski fight where he defeated Diego Lopez. Lightweight, Islam Makhachev. He obviously moved up. I think had he stayed at 155, he still would have been champion. Didn't know the UFC would let him move up. Welterweight, I was dead wrong on this one. Bilal Muhammad ends up losing to Jack Della Maddalena in a pretty big upset, and then Jack himself loses to Islam later that year. I was right about middleweight. Khamzat Chimaev absolutely destroying Dricus du Plessis in their middleweight title fight, so he ends up getting the belt there. Light heavyweight, I was right for part of the year. Ankalaev did defeat Alex Pereira. However, he ended up losing to Pereira in the rematch. And heavyweight, I got right, although people are going to be mad at this because obviously with what happened with the eye poke, but Tom Aspinall still technically the heavyweight champion, so I was right about that. Okay, let's get into 2026 and my picks. Let's start at flyweight. I'm going with Alexander Pantoja. Now, look, I know obviously Joshua Van is the champ, and he's most likely going to fight Tyra or Kopp next. At the time of recording this, we don't know. I don't think it matters. I think Pantoja, when he's healthy and he comes back, I do still think he's the best flyweight in that division. I think he gets it done. It's unfortunate what happened with the injury, but he is going to get to fight at some point next year, and it will be for the belt. I do think Pantoja, even at his age, he'll be 36 most likely by the time he fights, because he'll be 36 in April. I still think he can get it done, so I'm going with Alexander Pantoja as my flyweight champion. Bantamweight, I'm hopefully second time is a charm here. I do think Umar gets the belt at some point this year. Petr Yan, who's he going to fight next? There could be some politics here. I've talked about this before. I think if Sean O'Malley defeats Song Yadong, he will get to fight Petr Yan. I think if that happens, Petr Yan beats him. I think Umar is going to beat Davison Figueiredo, and I think at some point Umar is going to get to fight for the belt, and I do think Umar and Petr Yan will be a very close fight, but I think Umar, with the youth and the fact that he's getting better every fight, I think he does go out there and get the belt. So I'm going Umar for the bantamweight division. Kind of hoping for the same thing at featherweight. I don't know if this will happen. I mean, he's got to fight, right? Movsar Evloev's got to get a fight, I would think, at some point. And I would think that he wins whatever fight is next, whether that's Lerone Murphy or someone else. And then I think eventually, we'll see what happens with Diego Lopez and Volkanovski. I kind of have a feeling that Diego Lopez is going to beat Volkanovski this time. I'll have a preview of that coming out later. If he does do that, I would take Evloev in the rematch with Diego Lopez because he already has the win over him before. I know it was short notice, but I think Evloev's just got a style that's going to be tough to deal with in that weight class, especially in a 5-round fight. I think Evloev will eventually get the title shot, and if he does, I think he does end up becoming the champion by the end of next year. So Movsar Evloev is going to be my pick for the featherweight champion. All right, let's get to lightweight. Same thing. I think Arman eventually gets his title shot. We'll see what happens at the time of recording this. Obviously, we've got the Justin Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett fight. We don't know when Ilia Topuria is going to return. Let's say, for argument's sake, that the winner and Paddy and Justin, because that's going to be early 2026. The winner of that will fight Ilia maybe mid-year. I would think at some point Arman's going to get a shot before the end of the year. You would have to think, right? Unless something happens or whatever. But let's say Arman takes another fight. He most likely wins that. He will, eventually, I think, get the title shot. And I think he beats Ilia Topuria. I do. I think he can go out there and get it done. I've been very impressed with Arman. Again, 29 years old, in the prime of his career right now. I do think he can take the belt. I think if he doesn't get the belt here, I think it's going to be Topuria. I think these are the two top guys in that weight class. I also want to mention that I don't think Islam Makhachev is going to come back down to lightweight. I think he's going to stay at 170. So to me, it's Arman or Ilia, but I'll go with Arman for the sake of this video. Okay, let's go to welterweight. I do think Islam Makhachev by the end of 2026 will still be the champion. Who's he going to fight? Let's be honest. The way things are going, it's probably going to be Islam and Kamaru Usman next. I think Islam wins that fight. Then from there, I think somehow Shavkat Rakhmonov gets a title shot, whether he fights I don't know who next. Maybe Michael Morales, maybe fights Carlos Prates. I'm not sure. I think Shavkat will get the title shot. I think him and Islam will have a fight for the ages. I think it's going to be an amazing fight, but I do think Islam slightly edges that one out, even though Shavkat's going to be a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger there. I just have a hard time seeing Islam losing his belt. Even at 170, I think Islam still remains the UFC champion at this point, but I think we will get an Islam and Shavkat Rakhmonov title shot at some point in 2026. That's my bet on that. Middleweight. I still think it's going to be Chimaev. I'm sticking with that pick. I don't know who in this division right now could beat Chimaev. I think there's a couple interesting matchups that could take place. I think Imavov, him and Chimaev will fight, I'm sure, at some point. As great as and as much improved as Imavov's look, I don't think it'll be enough to defeat Chimaev. And then I think what's going to be really interesting is the winner of that Sean Strickland and Anthony Hernandez fight. I think Hernandez can edge this one out. I think he poses an interesting matchup for Chimaev with the grappling and the cardio as well. But ultimately, I think Chimaev is on another level right now. He's 31 years old. He's in the prime of his career. It's going to be hard to dethrone Khamzat Chimaev. I think the only way someone could really dethrone Chimaev is if they're able to keep it on the feet and they got some serious power like an Alex Pereira. But I just don't see anyone like that at middleweight right now. I don't think anyone's going to out-grapple Chimaev. I don't think anyone's going to, again, have a better ground game than Chimaev. Like, let's say we had like an old school Damian Maia in the weight class. I don't think we have anything like that. I think it would have to be a stand-up guy. And I just don't think there's anyone in that division right now that could do that. So I still think Chimaev will end up being the champion by the end of 2026. Okay, light heavyweight. This is going to surprise some people, but I was thinking about this more and more, and I do think that Yuri Prohaska will end up being the champion at some point. I think he'll retain his title because I think what's going to end up happening at some point is I think the way things are leaning right now, I think they're going to do Pereira and Ulberg. I think Pereira wins that fight. I think after that, the UFC does let Pereira move up to heavyweight because he's older. And I think they're like, well, you were already champion before at light heavyweight and had a couple title defenses. We'll let you move up to heavyweight. So I think the title will be vacant. I think it's going to be Yuri and Ankalaev or Yuri and someone fighting for that belt. And I think if it's Yuri and Ankalaev, I think Yuri can win. One of the things I was thinking about with Yuri, like, what is his kryptonite? His kryptonite is a guy that can outpower him in the stand-up. And that's why Pereira was able to defeat him twice. I don't think Ankalaev poses that same threat. Now, look, Ankalaev, very talented, very well-rounded. I don't think Ankalaev can put out Yuri. I think a lot of fighters can't put out Yuri Prohaska. I think this guy's a zombie in the weight class. I think you need that Alex Pereira death touch to go out there and do it. And I just don't see anyone else in that division having that. I think Yuri's unorthodox style will get him the belt back. I was just so impressed with what he did this year. And I know he didn't look good in the early part of that Khalil Roundtree fight, but that's part of it, is that he is so tough to take out these days. And he's such, he's got just such a crazy amount of heart. I think Yuri will be able to capture gold again. So I'm going Yuri at 205, assuming Pereira moves up. If Pereira stays, I think Pereira will be the champ, but I think they're going to let Pereira move up. And that leads to heavyweight. Tom Aspinall. I do think Tom Aspinall will still be the champ. I know there's going to be people already seething in the comment section about Cyril Gane would destroy Tom Aspinall in a rematch. Maybe he would. I wouldn't put that past, that Cyril Gane could beat Tom Aspinall in a rematch, but I think Tom will fight. I know he's got the eye injury. I think he's going to come back. I've heard some talk from people in the comment section being like, Tom's afraid to fight Gane. He's going to come back. Tom's going to come back. I think he beats Gane. I think he fights Pereira, and I think he beats Pereira due to just the ground game and the wrestling. I think Tom is more well-rounded than Pereira. And the one thing with Pereira is, like, again, amazing power that he's had in every weight class, but you're moving up. I mean, if you think about it, Pereira's kind of moving up 3 weight classes, right? He started at middleweight, went light heavyweight. The jump from light heavyweight to heavyweight is such a huge jump that I just don't think Pereira's going to have the same success he's had at 205 that he would have at heavyweight. I think Aspinall, despite, people thinking he's not that great, I'm still a believer. I think Aspinall and Pereira will fight in 2026, and I think Aspinall beats him. And I know that's crazy because, again, people are basing it off the one round he had against Cyril Gane, but I think Aspinall is the best heavyweight on the planet, and I think he shows that this year. We'll see how that ages as we go through next year. Okay, let's get to the women's divisions. So, women's bantamweight, Kayla Harrison, I think, will still be the champion, but this is with a caveat. I think she does lose to Amanda Nunes. I think Nunes beats her, but what I think happens is Nunes beats Harrison. Nunes vacates the belt and is like, look, I just wanted to come back for this one fight because, look, let's be honest here. What other intriguing fights are there at bantamweight for Amanda Nunes? Some people might mention Juliana Pena. I don't even think Nunes wants to give her that shot again. Plus, Pena is coming off a loss. She would have to get another win in between the Harrison and Nunes fight, and I just don't think the timing is going to work out. So what I see happening is I think Nunes beats Harrison. I think Nunes then retires again, vacates the belt. Harrison fights anyone else on the roster and she defeats them. So I think by the end of 2026, I think Harrison will lose her belt, but I think she'll come back and fight someone else for a vacant belt and she'll win that again. So I think Harrison will be the champ, but spoiler alert, I do think Amanda Nunes beats Kayla Harrison. I'll explain more why. I think I'll do an early look on that and explain why I think Nunes beats Kayla Harrison. Okay, flyweight. This is going to be an interesting one. Natalia Silva. I think Natalia Silva, who is coming up to fight Rose Namajunas, I think she wins that fight. And then I think she fights Valentina, and I think she defeats Valentina. I am very high on Natalia Silva, 28 years old, coming into her own at the right time. I've just been so impressed with some of the wins that she's had. And I think she's maybe the most underrated fighter in this division in terms of just not a lot of people talking about her. I think she goes out there and captures gold this year at 125. I think she gets it done. Okay, and last but not least, we're going to go to strawweight, kind of an obvious one here. So this one I think will be a little bit different. So Weili Zhang, I do think she comes back down and fights at 115, but what I think they're going to do first is, I think they're going to do I think Mackenzie Dern's going to fight someone else for a first title defense, and I think it's going to end up being, well, we'll see. I think Jillian Robertson can defeat Amanda Lemos when they have their rescheduled fight, and I think they'll do Jillian Robertson and Mackenzie Dern, and then I think the winner of that will fight Weili, and I think Weili will win that fight. It's kind of where I'm leaning right now. I think Weili will come back down. I don't think it matters who she ends up fighting for the belt, but I think she comes back down. She competes for the belt again, and then either retires or maybe only has like another couple fights. But I mean, her losing to Valentina the way she did, I think there's no chance she stays at 125. I think she goes back down to 115, gets her belt back, and and then starts to ride off into the sunset a little bit because she'll be 37 next year. But I do think Weili Zhang will end up getting her belt back at strawweight. I think that's what ends up happening. So let me know in the comments which divisions. Well, actually, no, just let me know in the comments who you think is going to be champ in every division. Give me your list. Would love to hear from you. Again, I'm predicting a lot of different scenarios here with a lot of these divisions. So a lot of the stuff may not end up happening, but that's the fun of this, right? It's just like a fun, look ahead video that may be right or may be wrong. But yeah, just let me know your picks or let me know if there's something you agree or disagree on. Would love to hear from you. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.